Leonard's going to be a bit late.
Leonard Thomas.
But we're starting with PMB 2101, I think, okay? And we all here?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Is some kid joining?
She is, but she's going to be a bit late. She was at the clothing bank today.
Okay. Well, let's maybe start with the graph and the trends, and then she'll hopefully be here by the time we need narrative.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Okay.
Laura, you're on mute.
Thank you. So the first thing I want to ask, this PMB 2101, this is a baseline group, I take it?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
great. So it's baseline. Okay, I'm going to just share my screen with you. Just give me a second. All right, let's go in and share this. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, boy, we can.
All righty. So for PMB 2101, we have 13 people that were in the system. I take it, I hope that's correct. We've got a average score of 34, 13, and 4. So that's not too bad at all. At least it's in the 30s, which is great. And there's only 4 areas where they are on average are stuck. A couple of households are doing a little worse. So, for example, Busisi, where Majozi's got 7 areas where she's stuck, but her average number of greens is quite high, 34. So that's great. And then we've got 2 here. They've got 6 areas where they are each stuck. Let's go and take a look at what the graphs are telling us. So definitely here we're seeing some financial deprivation. So there's poverty here. We've got 69% of the households here are telling us they're earning between 2 and 5, and 31% are earning less than 2,000 Rand. Nobody's pulling in 5,000 or more, and that includes grants and all forms of income.
Okay, there's Thomas. Thomas, you in? Thomas? Thomas, are you in?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
All right.
How's it, guys?
Okay, moving to the next indicator, number 2, stable employment income sources. No green here. So none of these families have anybody that's experiencing stable employment or self-employment or stable income source. Everything is either unstable or they're quite literally living hand to mouth. So there's no green from this whatsoever. So these two together are showing quite deep financial poverty. And yet, having said that, interesting to note that they feel that 69% say they've got access to credit facilities. I find that very interesting that you've got access to some sort of competitive or legal credit facilities, and yet you're in this state. That doesn't quite make sense to me. Maybe when Samkin joins us, she can explain that. Family savings, 85% have never saved, and probably find that the pandemic situation with COVID, which has affected a lot of people all over South Africa at the moment, it's affected a lot of people have lost jobs in the family, and a lot of people have lost income in the family, and they've also had to use up their family savings on putting food on the table and paying for water and electricity. So this might not have looked quite as bad as maybe back in 2019 if you'd done the survey, but we won't know because this is a first group, and maybe by the time you do the next survey, this will change quite radically. But for the moment, this is quite severe poverty. But everybody's got their IDs. Let's look at the ones in health and environment that might interest you here. Nutrition, 92% are saying we probably are getting 2 square meals a day, but not necessarily made up of the right kind of foodstuffs. Possibly a lack of balance here when it comes to the variety that they should be eating. Either that, or there is a form of ignorance around what actually is important to eat. But no reds. Garbage disposal, we're looking here at a little bit of a lack of municipal systems here and services, but again, no red. Alcohol and drugs seems to be pretty low. Looks like one family red, one family yellow. Rest are 85% green. We know often to take this particular indicator with a pinch of salt. We can hear from Samka whether that really is reflective of what she thinks is going on. Okay, under housing and infrastructure, a lot more yellow coming up. We're seeing sanitation and sewage is a little bit of a problem. They don't have enough spaces in their houses or their shacks to separate the boys from the girls and the adults from the children. Also stove and kitchen, it's old, but at least it's working. Regular means of transport, here they are struggling. So they're probably either struggling with frequency and reliability of the transport, or they're struggling with affordability. So it'd be interesting to hear from Samka which of the two that is. But distance and time to work, they're not struggling with, but they are in terms of the type of transport and whether they can rely on it. Security doesn't seem to be bad at all. Look, 69% green, which is really good to see, and only a little bit of yellow, and basically only one house that's experienced crime in the last 6 months. Clothing, not looking too bad. Education and culture, the two that are really important here, I think, for you are number 33 and number 34. 33 showing no green whatsoever. This is knowledge and skills to generate income. So they feel that no one in our family has the knowledge and skills to generate income. Some of our family might have a little bit of knowledge and skills, but others are saying, 54% are saying, no, we know nothing. We are stuck. We are helpless here. We need help from scratch in what to do and how to do it. So that's a very big red flag for you, number 33. And number 34, interesting enough, there's no red, which means that tells me they are actually watching their budget, but they're watching their budget and planning informally. They're probably not writing it down, but they think they know where their money's going, even if they don't have really a formal plan for it. So we'd like to see the green grow there. Often when people feel they're living hand to mouth and they can't afford to save, they won't even think about budgeting and planning, because they'll just shrug their shoulders, push their hands in the air and say, what on earth must I budget for? There's no spare money, so why should I? But planning is incredibly crucial in knowing where your money goes. Your social networks looks good. I'm not worried about your entertainment and recreation as purely perception. Cultural traditions and heritage, quite interesting to see that you've got some yellow there. I'd be interested to know from Samka what that's about, but you guys are in KZN, and we do find that one can go yellow or red, where people are pushing back at the boundaries of what culture and traditions expect of them. Influence of public sector, not terribly worried about that. That's the legacy of apartheid, where people can feel a little bit voiceless, but you've got some green that's coming through, which is good. And then the last one, which we know is the most important, self-awareness and motivation. So this is interesting. Usually number 44, which is awareness of needs and having a life map and personal goals, usually this one, and number 50, if the one is yellow, the other one's quite yellow too. Here you've got all of the families saying, no, we know where we're going. We've got personal goals. We know exactly what we want to achieve. And their self-confidence is really high. No, we know how to do it. We are full of hope. We've got lots of self-confidence. And yet the entrepreneurial spirit is 85% yellow, which means they think that they've got a map and life goals. Yes, they think they've got confidence, but they don't really want to take a risk. They don't necessarily believe that their lives can be different. And so it's worth taking a risk for. So that for me, there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect between number 50 and number 45 and number 44. And that also worries me a little bit. There's no yellow here under 44 and 45, but there is very much yellow under 50. How can you feel like life's not you're not sure about whether life can be different for you and it's worth taking a risk for? And yet say you've got complete self-confidence and you've got all these goals for the future. So for me, there's a disconnect there that I need to understand from Samka. And also, I don't know how you can say that you've got 100%, you're all putting forward your goals as a family and personal goals, and you're all very, very self-confident when you're looking at a situation like this with your knowledge and skills and looking at a situation like that with your earnings. So for me, there's a disconnect here that I'd like to hear from Samka when she comes on board. I hope somebody's taking notes.
Yeah. Okay, please just, if, I don't know, hopefully Samke will be on soon. But for this group, were there green light surveys done during recruitment, or were they delayed and done after they'd started induction?
These ones, they were a bit delayed.
Okay. So they were done after induction?
Yes.
Okay. That could explain it, Laura, because in induction, it's a full week of where
Yes.
I'm stuck and what my goals are. So
Yes.
they might have already done that.
Okay, so in other words, they were inspired, they were feeling motivated, they were feeling excited.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, got you.
Because we did, I mean, all our recruitment now happens in the space of a couple of weeks. So Samke kind of does as much as she can, as fast as she can, but it doesn't mean that they all get done before they physically start with us.
Got you. That exactly explains it. That's exactly what I was looking for. Perfect. But I love the fact that the stoplight actually shows it. The stoplight actually brings it out. If they had done this before induction, you probably find that this would not have been nearly as green as it was.
Absolutely. But that's why it's important for us to actually get them done during recruitment, which is what we are supposed to try and stick to.
Okay.
So we need real baselines, because now if you look at this to 1 year from now, you know, we won't see as much progress reflected as if it had been done before.
Yes, that is true. But you do understand, but at least you know why and you know what the picture is.
So could you just repeat that as to why there's a disjoint between those three elements?
Because we were saying that number 50 and number 44 and a little bit of 45, these usually correlate. They talk to each other. Okay, if the indicators are all talk to each other, some less so than others. So I'll give an example, another example. Let me just take you back to here. Physical health and personal hygiene is often very, very closely associated with access to a quality healthcare center. And it's also linked to nutrition and access to drinking water. All of these talk to each other. It makes sense. Why they talk to each other. You know, if I don't eat well, it can affect my physical health. If I don't have access to a quality healthcare center that I trust, I can't get the medication.
No, so I'm not disagreeing with, but yes. What I understand is we said that we know the explanation as to why there's a disjoint between this.
Okay, because before induction, they would have been feeling possibly very different. After induction, they're feeling motivated and inspired. They're now in a program who's revving them, who's encouraging them, giving them support, talking to them, acting like cheerleaders. Now their mindsets are in a different place to what it was a couple of days before.
So these assessments were done after induction then? Is that what we're saying?
That's exactly what what Bronwyn's just said. She said, Laura, these surveys were done after induction. That's why you can see this is very green. And I said, because there's a disconnect. Why is that one so yellow and these two are so green? I'd like to understand. And she came online and she said, it's because they were done after induction. We'd already gotten to them and started working on their mindsets.
Okay. But then, so which program is this related to then? 2101 PMB?
Textile promise, textile conversion.
Okay. So is an expectation for some level of entrepreneurial skills to come through, and then the other one that I thought was quite relevant to this is the income. If you just scroll across to the left, please. Just
The first one.
no, the where we talk about income. Where do I expect to get? Yeah,
Yeah.
that income and employment, stable employment, income sources. Now that's a bit concerning. If you're on a program where we're trying to teach you, like, this is where you're going to get your possible income from, and there's still uncertainty.
But Thomas, please remember that this is baseline. They haven't been with us. They've just started. So
They haven't
this is
ex-
actual.
Yeah, they haven't experienced it yet, Thomas. This is, I mean, we're asking them for a snapshot right now. Do you have stable employment? Do you have stable income sources? Nothing's been proven to them yet. They might have started the program, but they haven't seen the consequences of any actions yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by nature of them applying to our program, Thomas, they are unemployed. They don't have money, so they've applied. And
Yeah,
this
but
is a
then
snapshot of that.
so, but then we talk about the self-awareness being high. Like, so I'm on a high, but I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah, that's what Laura's explaining is that didn't make sense, which wouldn't make sense if these were done before they started induction. They started induction. These were done in induction, so they would have already done they stuck their fear and their goals in that week and be revved up and excited because they've just done induction, but they haven't started technical. They don't know anything further than just being in a high energy environment, getting through some life goals, which is why that is reflecting well, but doesn't reflect the actual picture that is being reflected in the graph, which is real life.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Are you guys able to share this with us at some stage?
So we used to, Parmas. I've kind of put a huge break on all information sharing since the POPI Act came into effect very recently, and we're waiting on legal opinions on all of our information, what can be shared and what can't.
Okay.
But we used to
Okay.
share all of this with everybody. Yeah.
I reckon that it's not a problem to share the graphs because it's macro data. What I wouldn't potentially share or think about sharing
Sorry.
is your detail.
Yeah, I didn't see that up above.
Yeah.
The graphs were interesting, but I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I don't think we can share this right now, eh?
No, so that is all the detailed information of who, what, and exactly who's experiencing stuckness and challenges. Whereas these macro graphs for a particular cohort, a particular group, I don't think there's any problem with sharing this at all.
Yeah, the trends.
You can't. Yeah, these are. You can't. Yeah, there's no way you can tie these graphs to a particular person. So it's absolutely fine to share them, as far as I understand.
So just in our own sectors, we can't even share what, like if textiles my sector, to have a look at that.
I don't understand.
No, I'm saying I know we're all talking about sharing, but like if my sector is now PMB 2101, can I not be sent the breakdown of each person? No.
No, of course you can.
Helen, you are busy running PMB 2101.
Yeah.
So, and you are employed by the Go Group physically.
Yeah.
So you bound. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Unfortunately, this is what we're kind of getting at is Palmer's being external, Brenda being external, Rodney being external. Unfortunately, there's just some things that can and can't be shared, which we're trying to get around it, is what I'm saying, because Palmer's, Rod, and Brenda have got access to all information that is confidential by nature of our agreements that we have, because they physically sign them, right? So we're just trying to go through it. But for now, the action item I just want to ask is, Akona's busy, we've got that, the worksheet where we document action items out of these Greenlight feedback sessions. Those used to be on the recruitment trackers. So what I'm going to ask is that we copy and paste the graphs here, the income and employment, health, environment, copy and paste those as is into the action list. That action list can then go out to everybody because it doesn't have any personal information at all.
Okay.
I think that whoever's going to be working with these individuals as mentors, coaches, etc., if they've signed a non-disclosure agreement, a confidentiality agreement, then you're providing a service directly in to mentor or coach these individuals. So if you're coaching a particular individual, it's really important to know where they are stuck and where they're not. Yeah, as long as there is either an NDA or a confidentiality agreement that is signed. And if you get this information and it's on your laptop or it's on the server, you know where to access it. It's all password protected.
Okay. Yeah, so we're working on it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're about to go through a whole bunch of training on everything. All this information, including all of our very deep stuff from OI workshops and OI interviews, the whole team, everybody that had any access to our programs had access because we wanted everybody to be singing from the same hymn book. That was always the reason behind it. So now we're about to all start going through training and then understand what contracts need to place. So like Terry's just mentioned, the NDA should protect all of us as long as we are aware of how we are taking information, processing it and using it. And as long as it's never going outside of or anything, which none of us would do, but legally we now actually have to show like we've gone through this process, we understand and we agree. So we're on it, we'll get cracking.
Okay. All right, any questions around this PMB 2101? The stories you'll have to get from Sampika when she joins to actually explain some of these items. I don't have access to that information as to why. All I can talk you through is what we're seeing. You want to do Johannesburg next?
Yes.
Yeah. We just obviously don't have Janine on the call here. So same thing, we're going to need to note down some stuff from the narrative that we need to know.
All right, so the interesting thing here is that with the PMB 2101, the average score for this group that came in was 34, 13, and 4. If we move to Johannesburg, the average here is 40. That's a high score. So you've got a group coming in, there's 14 of them, with an average score of 47 and 4, and some of them are really high. Some of them are like 48, 46, 46. I think the lowest here was 32. So it's a pretty good looking set of scores. Let's see where they come through and say that they're really stuck. Okay, let's look at income and employment. So with this group, 57% of this group are saying we've got 5,000 or more coming in, and that may include grants, but it's 5,000 or more. A small group, 7% are saying we've got between 2 and 5 coming in, and then a bigger group, 36%, have less than 2,000 coming in. If I look at the stable employment and income sources, interestingly, the shape of this graph is pretty much the inverse of number one. Usually these two graphs correlate. So I'd be quite interested to find out what this is about. Why do these two graphs look so different? So what we're seeing is only 21% say they've got stable employment and income sources, and yet there's double that in terms of the number of families with more than 5,000 coming in. So this probably tells me is that it's a small group of families who've got stable income and possibly at least 2 earners. And when they are earning, they're earning quite big. Here it's telling me, the yellow is telling me there's generally only one person who's got possibly some stable income coming in, and they're possibly earning not too badly, but they're also earning quite well. And there's only a handful of households here who really, they're dependent on grants. They're completely dependent on grants. So I think you've got a couple of households here that are big earners, and multiple sources of income coming in. But a very different look and feel to what you saw here for PMB. Access to credit facilities, we've spoken about what that was before. I'm not going to look at it. Family savings, 71% of these families say they have never saved. Only 14% are saying we're managing to keep 3 months of income more or less somewhere saved. And another 14% saying we're trying, but we don't get it right all the time. You might have found again that this would have been a higher green and a higher yellow, and maybe the red not so bad if it wasn't the time of COVID. A lot of families are having to, especially if they already have businesses running in the family, or there's a family member with a business, they've had to use those family savings to put food on the table and to do other things, even to maintain a business, and so they've had to stop saving. Health and environment, this is pretty green across the whole table. So this is looking pretty green. You've got a couple of families here with don't have access to a quality healthcare center, which then can affect their physical health. Nutrition, not looking too bad. 64% of those families are saying we're solid, we're getting our veggies and fruit, and we're eating well and we're eating right and it's balanced. 36% saying, yeah, maybe not as good as we could be. You might find they're eating more comfort food. Sexual health and family planning, there's only, I think that's probably only one family that is saying that they're struggling. And there's probably pregnant teenagers in the family. There's 2 families here that their children are either with grandparents or they've sent them probably to another area to stay with family. So they're not with their families in Joburg. Alcohol and drugs, a little bit of a higher percentage here. We're seeing that 29% are yellow. So 29% of these families are saying, look, we've got alcohol and drugs in all alcohol and drugs in our family, and it is affecting our family to some degree. Not to the point where we're really feeling it badly, but it is affecting our family. Again, exactly what that is about, what the alcohol or what the drug is, who's taking it, how, will have to come out in the stories, but just be aware of it. The only real one I want to pull out here is separate sleeping spaces. We've got a scenario here where there's just not enough space again in the households. I don't know how big these families are, but you're seeing they're struggling here a little bit with their families to separate the boys and the girls. Nice to see that the transport is more green than the yellow. Education and culture, what do I want to pull out here? Well, it's number 33 and 34. 33, interesting. 71% say they've got the knowledge and skills to generate an income. They're green. No, we know what we're doing. And if you know what you're doing, are you able to convert that into a job or self-employment and income? So if 71% say, yep, no, we're doing well, if I go back and have a look here, did that 71% of feeling confident in your knowledge and skills, did that translate to 71% here? No. There's only 21% that say, doesn't matter how much knowledge and skills we've got, only 21% say we're actually stable with income, employment income sources. It looks like a whole lot of them don't feel like that. It's just too touch and go. That's why the yellow's so high. So potentially these Johannesburg people feel like they've got the knowledge and skills, but there may be a lack of opportunity, job opportunity, or they may not be trying so hard, or they feel that their time is still coming. But there is a bit of disconnect, without a doubt, between number 33 and number 2. Because there's 71% green on the other side and only 21% green here.
It could be, I don't know if I'm right here, but Joburg is only flooring. And when this was done, they would have been also in the beginning. And the nature of flooring is that it is unstable. Everyone's on contract work.
Okay.
So it's high when it's high and it's low when it's low. And nobody's fully employed. Even the installers themselves are paid per month or per square meter, even, not even per month.
Okay. And yet with the pandemic, with everybody doing massive house renovations and, the builders warehouse and all of these places making huge profits over this pandemic time because people used that time to renovate their house and to build and etc. Even with that, you say that the opportunities haven't been so great for the floor tilers.
No, so there's the whole, we're dealing with this, as you can imagine, bigger picture Bulgatex as well. There's been a massive shift to the DIY market.
Okay.
So when you shift to DIY, I mean, we don't have any DIY products. So when you shift to DIY, the service industry loses out. And that is this program, that is floor covering installers.
Got you. Okay, that helps. Thanks.
So, I mean, so I mean, you know, we've got insight into how builders and them have been doing, and they've been doing astronomically well because of this DIY thing, and it's not reflecting on our side.
Thank you. That's awesome. Again, nice to see that there. I mean, we picked up there's a disconnect between number 33 and number 2, and this is why. So this is, again, I love the fact that the stoplight is actually bringing this out. Capacity to plan and budget. We're seeing again quite high reds and yellows. They need a little bit more help around this, and I'm hoping this will come through to them from the course that you're doing with them. Access to information and means to communicate. Interestingly enough, that they are quite yellow. I'm used to seeing Johannesburg crowd usually very green. You know, I know that bandwidth and data is expensive, but I tend to see that the urban guys in Johannesburg tend to be quite high on green with this. Everybody's got their cell phones, not necessarily smartphones, but cell phones. They're able to communicate. They're able to, you know, keep in contact, be aware of what the news is, look for jobs, etc. So quite interesting to see that yellow. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. Influence in public sector, I'm not terribly worried. We know that wants to do with the legacy of apartheid and not having voices on the ground. Okay, self-awareness and motivation. Okay. This looks a little bit more realistic to me. So we've got here that a couple of the households are struggling a little bit with their life maps and personal goals, but the majority say they're feeling pretty confident. They know where they want to go and what they want to do. There's about a 30% yellow here around the self-esteem and self-confidence. Which could also be a backlash of the story around the DIY market, people feeling a little bit unsure what's happening in the future and what's in store for them. So they may have the knowledge and skills, but they're not quite sure if, you know, they still have a place or a role, and it's a little unpredictable right now. Yet they're feeling gung-ho about the future. Number 50 is showing, we are still ready to go. We still believe the future can be different. We're still willing to take the risk. We still want to get out there. So we still want to go for it. So I'm glad to see that's in place. This awareness of own and other people's emotions, I'm very pleased to see this come out. This is that measure of emotional intelligence in terms of how people are feeling when it comes to handling conflict, handling disagreements, handling when things don't go their way. Are they able to adjust and listen? Are they able to realize that other people feel differently and may not agree with them? And they are struggling a little bit with that. I don't know if that is due to a lack of unity and family unity in the family around how money should be used, and then getting into a tiff with other people in the family, or if this is around work, when you're working with a particular group of people, or you're providing a service to somebody and they get a little bit funny with them and they don't quite know how to handle it and they get angry, or the person gets angry at them. So this might be quite a nice one to unpack with this group and just find out a little bit more about where this is coming from.
Yeah, I want to note down that trend, so number 47, AK, because it's exactly this that keeps us back on sites. So, I mean, we've just, not with this group, but for a different group, we've just done a huge project in Soweto and had to deal with some very severe racism. And luckily, that group's emotional intelligence was just incredible. And we
Okay.
got through it and we completed it.
Fantastic.
And that is so, but what I'm saying is that we need to take note of this, do a session, and then maybe immediately after do a difficult project, like stage a difficult project where you're dealing with a very difficult time, and multiple people on a project, different contractors, and maybe role play something out here.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you look at number 47 and you look at number 42, ability to solve problems and conflicts. You can see there's a little bit of yellow and red coming out. So those two are also quite tied to each other. So I can see a bit of a reflection happening there.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to HC 2101.
Cool. Can I just
Yes.
Ellen, I see Lynn's not here, but Ellen and Promise, we done flooring. So if you guys need to shoot, no qualms from us. We're going to move to food security.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the feedback.
Cool.
Okay, I'm also logging off. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye. All right, can I go ahead?
Yeah.
All right. So here you've got 15 people that did these surveys. The average here, also a nice average, 36, 12, and 3. If we take a look at the graphs, starting off with income and employment, really nice to see that the green is actually pretty high here. And so 60% are earning more than 5, 33% between 2 and 5,000, and only 7% less than 2,000. So, you know, this is pretty good. This gives me some nice hope. It's nice to see this shape graph coming through. However, the employment and income sources here are reasonably unstable. So it's not quite hand to mouth. There's a little bit of strong stability in a couple of the households, no stability in a couple of the households, but the majority, you know, they're limping on along, and it's a little bit of touch and go, but it's not too bad. So 73% in the yellow, but the amount of income that's coming through is actually pretty nice. So when the work does, when it does come through, when the work does reap its rewards, it's coming through nicely. Does that make sense for this group?
I'm not sure.
Is this the food security?
Yes.
Yeah, Rod.
Sure. Those
No.
numbers are surprising for me. I don't know about anybody else.
Me as well. I'm thinking food security is normally our
That's
like
the lowest.
totally.
So what?
Um,
Carry on.
Is here.
I think it's because most of them, they have grannies. So they normally get grants from the grannies because most of the families have gogos who receives pension. So their income does contribute. That's why most of them, they earn more than 2,000, between 2,000 and 5,000 because of grants.
I hear you.
I'm just wondering if there's one or two individuals with higher. I know there is one particular lady who, I mean, she drives a car and everything. So I'm wondering if her income might be skewing this a bit, because that's not really representative.
It says 60% of the group, Rod. She's only one. It's 60% of the group, not 60% of the income.
Sorry. Okay, cool. All right.
I also think, you know, the Majosi girls weren't coming from a very poor family. Their brother was taxi owner or something.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I was going to say. So even though this is the food security group, you might find that in their families, there are people who are hustling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hustling, making things happen.
So there is also some of them who live. So the Majorzies are one example, but there's also other families that's it's almost like they've on their piece of land they've got maybe 3 or 4 homes. You know what I mean? So
Or
as a
rentals.
collective,
Yes.
that might be skewing the graph a little bit also.
Yeah, so you'll have to ask Samka when she sends her stories to you. You'll have to look at those stories and actually read through to see, you know, why that is coming in the way that it is.
Okay.
But it makes you feel quite good when you see the greens and reasonably you know, this quite high yellow here. There's not a lot of a heavy red compared to, for example, PMB, which was horrible. And even Johannesburg didn't quite look as good as this group.
Yeah. And I think there was a lot of young people in this Hillcrest group who weren't the ones running the households, whereas PMB group, there's a lot of older people who are the adults that are supposed to be bringing the money in. So I think that's where the difference may also come in.
Okay. Okay. Family savings also not looking good, as we can see. Again, time of pandemic, it's not great. But I just also want to take a quick look at access to credit facilities. Look how high the green is, and that's because the income is looking pretty good. And when the income looks pretty good, it means they have access to credit facilities. Not saying they don't have a lot. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. When was this survey done? Okay.
Do you remember something?
February, March.
March. Look at the dates. March. The last one was done in April, but they're done basically beginning of March.
I'm saying where in the process, just this after induction or before induction. Okay, that's after.
We're really struggling to hear you there, Rod.
He's
Oh,
asking
sorry, no, I'm just saying, I just was trying to work out where in the, whether it was before induction or after induction.
So she started during induction and then went over to after induction as well.
Okay, so that's the graph for family savings. Needs to be worked. Yeah. We can't hear you.
I think we've lost you there, Rod.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try again.
Sorry, just the last one was, in terms of loan facilities, they're not looking at the loans that they get from the Go Group as a facility, correct?
I don't know.
No, some cases no.
That's a good.
Okay.
Some cases no. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a good point, Laura. In all of our programs, we've got a small startup loan. They could be reading it as that.
Yeah.
Because remember, there also might be a part of them that's still looking for the right answer in terms of these surveys, and so if there's any remnants of right or wrong answers, that might be a question that might be a little bit influenced. But if some kids saying no, then maybe just something to note down going forward, just to say to them that you know, disqualifying that loan from the Go Group. You know, do you have anything else?
Yeah.
Hear you.
You're breaking up. Yeah, I think let's move on.
Health and environment.
Let's move on, yeah?
So access to quality healthcare centre, this particular group, there is 40% of the households who are struggling a little bit with access. I don't know if it's a distance or if it's the fact that it's not a good healthcare centre, but they are struggling a little bit. And you can see the nutrition is quite yellow again. Now that we've got Samka with us, maybe Samka can tell us, Samka, is this a case of a lack of knowledge around what good nutrition is and having a balanced diet? Or is it a case that they're not getting those 2 meals a day?
It is the lack of knowledge most of the time.
Okay. Thank you. But they say on the personal health, physical health side, they're looking really green, which is great. So even though some of them are struggling with getting to that healthcare centre, they're very green. That sexual health and family planning is very green. That worries me that it's so green, which is a very under-disclosed indicator. So Samka, here's the question. Did they not want to talk about this indicator?
Most of the time they just laugh at me and then they don't want to talk about it.
And you don't dig, hey? You don't try and get them to ask.
I do try and dig and make an example. If you were aware of what is it that is right for you to do, if you knew when you were a child about sexual health, condomizing, abstaining and everything, would you be able to share that information with your children if you had that information? And then most of them, they like, we do speak to them, or someone says they are still young, I will start once they are older and all that. But I do go down into chatting to them about it.
And they still want to go to a green. These people are in denial. This is, and I do notice this very strongly when it comes to KZN. It's a hot spot for me around denial around the sexual health and family planning story. It worries me because it means there's a whole lot of consequences around that. It's such an important indicator. Okay, let's have a look. Wow. I don't know if I've seen many 100% greens on parenting. That's also kind of blows me away. That means every one of these, how many of these families? Well, there's only 15, I suppose, but every one of these 15 families has 2 actively involved adults who are involved in bringing up the children. Where are we? There, parenting. So that's pretty amazing. I don't often see that, but that's I suppose maybe that's just the group.
Yeah, they are quite from a big families where there is mom, auntie, granny, and the one who is in the program. So they are in a semi-rural area, so that's why the families are there.
Okay. Thank you. Garbage disposal. If it's sort of peri-urban, peri-rural, it's going to have some yellow in it. Alcohol and drugs, we are seeing a little something here again. That is similar to some of the other graphs that we've seen today. There's one family here at least that is struggling quite badly. There's some stuff going on here that is really hurting the family. Another family where it is also affecting them, but not as badly. And then the rest seem to be doing okay. Samka, did they talk about what the scenario is around the alcohol and drugs? Whether it's children, is it people getting drunk on weekends?
It is children and people getting drunk on weekends.
So is it children getting drunk or children taking drugs?
Most of them, it was about alcohol.
Okay. Were there any particular stories that came out around this one? Samka?
Yes.
Were there any particular stories that came out around number 16?
Yes. like Sazi's family.
Is that-
Hello?
Sorry, Samki, I was just going to ask, has it, because there is one of the ladies who literally lives next door to a tavern. So I'm not sure if, sorry, I interrupted. I'm not sure if that was the person that you're referring to.
No, it's not about living next to a tavern or not, but it's about who is affected in the family. So like Sazi, his brother is an alcoholic, and that leads him to be violent to them. And they ended up, it does affect him, because once he gets drunk, he comes home and disrupts everyone while they are sleeping.
Yeah, yeah, very much. I get that completely. That probably would have been your red. Yeah, I'm with you. Thank you. And again, I'm hoping that the stories behind these reds and yellows, they will come through in Samka's narratives that she's going to send you. Housing and infrastructure. Let's see what stands out here. Again, sanitation and sewage. I expect to see yellow in peri-rural. Sleeping spaces is, again, they're struggling with the size. Samka says they're quite large families. So again, it's going to be the sizes of the households, the sizes of the shelters, at not having enough space for people. There's nothing else really want to pull out here. Security, there's roughly just under half of the people say that they're experiencing crime at least, annually. They're experiencing some sort of crime, but I'm not seeing any red, so I suppose that's okay. Education and culture, the ones we want to immediately jump on are number 33 and 34, and those are very, very yellow. So again, they're saying we need more knowledge and skills. We admit and understand that we don't know enough. We also admit and understand that while we do kind of try and see where our money's going and try and maybe do a little bit of a budget in our head, we're not doing this formally. We're not doing this in any way that we document it. So we're not planning properly. And those are the two of the indicators that I would take it that you guys would definitely work on in your program. So we want to see those start to turn green. This particular group, interesting to see that influence of public sector is very, very red. I do often see that coming through some of the KZN groups, because they don't want to talk up, because they feel they might be victimized. And if they're in a very political environment where they've seen other things happen to people who've spoken up or spoken out, they may really feel like they just don't have a voice. It's quite red, even in comparison to the other groups. I just want to have a quick look at that here. Yeah, 46% for PMB. And what was it for Johannesburg? Johannesburg, we're looking at 36%. So yeah, this group is 67% red. So I think politically things may be a little bit charged in this particular group. Self-awareness and motivation. Okay, we've got a similar situation here, I think, as PMB 2101, where you've got self-confidence and having life goals and maps. All of this is very, very green. They're very excited. They're feeling very strong. But your entrepreneurial spirit and motivation is yellow, meaning that they're not quite sure if, life is worth taking a risk for. Things can be different. Will they be willing to try again? And yet there's such huge confidence here. When did this particular group start? Or should I say, when was this survey done compared to induction?
Also after-ish.
Okay, so then we've got a similar situation to one of the other groups, where they started also. You start working on them, their mindset starts shifting, they start getting very excited, they get to go home, they make their families very excited, but they're still a little bit nervous about where things are going and if they're going to fail, and they don't want to set themselves up to fail. Yeah, okay, but that green should shift for number 50. We expect we should see that green shifting quite radically by the next survey. Awareness of own and other people's emotions. Again, something that you can look at, similar to, I think, the Johannesburg crowd. There can be done a little bit of work here with some role playing if you want to, and this is around EQ. Interesting that their ability to solve problems and conflicts, number 42, is nice and high and green. So might want to look into that. Samka, do you have any commentary around number 47?
Yeah, they always say they are aware of their own emotions, and some of them it's more like being able to speak their mind, and for others it's like they decide to keep quiet and not want to cause trouble.
Yeah. Okay. So when they come across a difference of opinions, or somebody else is showing some sort of emotion that they don't understand, they either retreat into themselves and just shut up, or else they might get angry and lose their tempers because they don't understand why that person's behaving or feeling the way they are. So again, that's probably also related, as I said, to its EQ and basically social skills and practice of social skills. What does interest me here is that this group, there's quite a bit of violence, number 49. Take a look there, 33% yellow and 13% red. So there's quite a bit of violence that seems to be coming through in this group. Something,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about this?
Most of the ladies got raped.
Oh.
Yeah, it's more of people who got raped. Like I think it was 3 or 4 of them. And even though some it didn't happen to them personally, but it's their close relatives, cousin, or everyone.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so there's rape in the community, and that also then leads to fear. And that also could, interestingly enough, be affecting number 50. If you've got a lot of fear in your life and you're still hurting inside, either hurting for yourself or hurting for your family members, sometimes it's quite hard to believe that life can really be different for you and that it's worth stepping out and trying something new and taking a risk. And even though your program might be making them feel quite self-confident and like, you know, yeah, let's go for it, let's have these goals, they are terrified of setting themselves up for failure. So that does lead into it. So there's a bit of a picture that's actually coming through. Sounds like this group, there's trauma, and you need to be quite supportive, especially when I see number 47 and 49, so yellow. If there was any yellow under 45, I would definitely say that I can think that this group has got trauma. And you need to be a little bit careful with challenging this group. You can push with the challenging of Johannesburg, push with the challenging of PMB 2101, but with this group, be aware that there may be some need for extra work emotionally and healing.
That's so good. That's so important.
Yeah. So as I said, the others you can push them, but these guys, I would just be a little bit careful. As I said, I'm surprised there's not some yellow under 45. Okay. Any other comments or questions around the HC 2101?
Nothing from my side. This has been very valuable. Thank you.
Okay, I want to actually just make a note here. Don't over challenge this group.
Yeah, but most of the people who had issues, they have left the group.
Oh dear. Well, that just shows that just shows that they left the group because they couldn't handle it, because you know what was going on inside wouldn't allow them to follow through with the program. Yeah, damn. They may come back, not now, but a little bit later. They may actually come back. But yeah, maybe some group healing, some group discussion, some group emotional work here.
Hmm.
All right, PMB 2102. Let's take a look at this group. Let's take a look what the averages are here. 15 in the group, average is 38, 9, and 3. So not quite as high as Joburg, but a nice high 30 score. I like to see that. Let's have a look at income and employment first. And we see that, again, you're looking at some quite nice green here. Yes, there's yellows and reds, but your greens are higher. So 53% are earning 5,000 Rand or more. 20% between 2 and 5, and 27% are earning less than 2,000. But the majority of these households don't have stable employment and income sources. So again, that tells me the few families that do have stable and income sources are probably earning quite high. And there's probably multiple incomes coming in as well. So this is something that you really do want to see change again over time. Can I just have a quick look at this graph compared to your PMB 2101? So that's the shape of that graph, 2B101. Let's go back to that graph. Okay, they look quite different, don't they? You've got no greens in PMB 2101, but in PMB 2102, you've got a little bit of greens, and the yellow is very high, where here the red is higher. It's quite different groups. And when you look at the profile of the money that's coming in, PMB 2102, there's some nice chunky green there, whereas with PMB 2101, there is no green. So what is the difference between these two groups? Have you pulled them from two different areas?
I think it also comes down to living in sort of family setups.
But this is very, very different results. Samka, what do you think? PMB 2101 compared to PMB 2102. What did you notice as being so different between these two groups?
For PMB 2102, most of the family members are working, and for also some of them, they were working, so they still get some income from where they used to work before.
Okay. And what about PMB 2101? Why are they so red?
PMB 2101, most of them, they were also retrenched, but they didn't have income in their families. It was only the grants. And, what else? I can't remember the group. Sorry, I'm trying to remember people in the group.
Okay.
Also for PMB 2102, it is because some of the people who were in the bursary, they moved to join 2102, so they can have an influence on the graphs and everything.
Okay. So these are bursary people coming through.
Some of them are bursary people.
Okay.
Would it also not like be an attributing factor that PMB 2101 is mostly women, and then PMB 2102 has a mixture of young guys, some ladies, some old gents that are,
And also for 2102, most of them have their own businesses that they were doing before.
Okay, so so they've got entrepreneurial experience.
Yes.
I don't think it is.
We can't hear you, love.
Can we scroll up?
Yeah. Second. Okay. You want to see some names? We're really struggling to hear you.
I can't hear anything. If you guys can hear me, I can't hear anything.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you. It's Bronwyn we're not hearing.
Yeah, Bronwyn we're struggling with. Bronwyn, you said you wanted to look at some of the names? Okay, we've lost her. Okay, let's go back down. Okay. So I just want to make a note of under PMB 2101. So this is this was mostly women.
All women.
Were they all women? Okay. And were they young
Yes.
or they're old or in between?
Some are old.
There's a mixture.
Some of the elder ladies do have, like the one is currently selling produce, the other one does home care visits. So some of the elder ladies in this group actually already had income coming in.
From PMP 2102, right?
Yeah, my group.
Or is that 2102 you're talking about?
Yes, sorry. I'm not talking about the. Are you asking about the other group?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. All right, family savings. We're seeing here 87% have never saved, which is a little bit sad because if there is money coming in and some stable income, I would like to see that these families are starting to consider saving, even if it's just like a R2 saving scheme where it's R2 a week or whatever the case is. We really find that those families who saved over the pandemic time really were much more resilient than those that didn't save. It also builds emotional resilience knowing that you have a little something saved away should a catastrophe hit or you need to put food on the table because somebody's lost their job or jobs become inconsistent. So when you've got money coming in, it's always a time to put a little something aside, a little something always. So I'd love to see you guys getting this group into the mindset of why savings is important. Not a lot, just a little bit, and just slowly, slowly build it. Health and environment. Nutrition, again, we see quite a bit of yellow here, but we see quite a bit of green, which is also nice. This looks like it's only maybe one family here that is struggling in terms of a not having enough to eat. You might want to look into that. Nothing else here that really jumps out at me. Alcohol and drugs seems to be quite low. Do you think this is a reasonably fair reflection, Samka, on the situation, or were they under disclosing?
They were quite decent families, I would say yes.
Yes, what?
It is a true reflection.
Okay, thank you. Housing and infrastructure, let's see the ones that jump out. Again, sleeping spaces, houses not big, maybe families too big, not struggling to separate out their kids. Transport here comes through for this group as very high yellow. And Samke, is this a case of the fact that transport is limited for them, or is this a case of affordability?
They are a little bit far from town, so the transport sometimes gives them troubles.
Okay. So they're a little far from town.
Yes, some of them.
Transport
so they
can
do
be
have
irregular.
transport issues.
Okay, security, also not looking too bad, guys. Security always surprises me, but it shouldn't, but it does. Only 7% saying that they've experienced crime in the last 6 months, 27% in the last year, 67% not really in the last 2 years. That's a pretty good looking graph.
Yeah, and I'm sure it has changed now with PMB and settings and everything.
100%.
Okay. All right. The ones that again here that we're most interested in is 33 and 34. No greens. Now, this is quite fascinating. No greens. None of these families feel that they've got the knowledge and skills to generate an income. Yet, there is money coming in. Over half of these families have more than 5,000 coming in. So this is interesting. Usually it's the other way around. We find that people say, yes, we've got knowledge and skills, but they're not able to convert it into stable jobs and or income. Here it's the other way around. There's money coming in, okay, but this particular group is saying, we don't believe we've got the knowledge and skills to generate an income. We want more. We really want help. We're actually quite stuck around this. I find that fascinating.
Do you think it makes sense in a way that that's why they applied to the program?
Absolutely, I do. But what interests me is that not a single family here is saying, we again, were these surveys done before or after the induction?
After.
After, again. Okay. Because okay. I thought this might have been before. All right. Okay.
Is there a reason these are not getting done before they start? So they're not true baselines. Is it just a timing thing? What is the reason?
Yes, I think it's the timing.
So is it a trouble in terms of timing because you're not being told early enough, Samka, that you need to go and do these, or is it because you've got a lot of work to do for other organizations like the Clothing Bank, etc., that you've already committed to, and that this must just fit in when you can?
For these groups, I was not told earlier.
Okay. All right, so there's a lack of communication here from Belgatex's side, from your organization's side through to Samka, early enough for her to arrange and to schedule appointments and to go and do them.
I was worried about that.
All right, so this is interesting, just to know that this group is saying, we're here, we want to know more, we want to learn, we really, really need it, we understand that we need it, we confess that we need it, we don't think we're okay, and gimme knowledge and skills, gimme exercises, show me how to do budget and planning. We understand that we need these, which is great. They're not pretending that they're okay, which means they will probably jump on your program.
Which is nice, because then it does play into that A2 level that we target in recruitment.
Yes.
So conscious of incompetence and sensitive to criticism is sort of the ideal candidate.
Yes. Organization and participation. Ooh, interesting. Quite nice green there. So this is a group that's got voices and they feel that they're not particularly scared to speak out and to have their say. And let's take a look what's going on in self-awareness and motivation. Again, interesting, once again, this was happening after induction, so strong, vibrant feelings here in the mindsets around self-confidence and having life maps and personal goals and feeling yoo-hoo. But again, we see quite a lot of yellow coming through number 50 because of that, and there's that little disconnect. Awareness of own and other people's emotions. Again, you can see this is another group that needs work on that. So almost all of your groups have come through with this as a need. And I really, really appreciate that. I really appreciate that this has come out.
Awesome.
Yeah. Some violence here. And you'll see that it's probably, just 2 families here that are experiencing quite serious violence. I don't know if counseling is involved, or you might actually have to get the stories from Samka, because if there's violence in the family and it's going to affect them to the level of red, that may sabotage these two individuals who are on your program. In some ways, they may drop.
Counseling with one of them.
Okay, so there's counseling that may be required, yes?
Yes.
I don't even call it accounting on just support. How do you handle? So, and this is where you want to refer them possibly to groups like a Mosaic or the Justice Desk or other groups that work with trauma and how to protect yourself in a violent family. Otherwise, they may drop out of your program if they can't handle what's going on at home.
Yeah. I can't wait for the day that we've got like a network list where we can rely on partners to combat things.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to build, Ronnie. We are trying to start to pull together an ecosystem. I mean, that's why we're starting to. Don't know if anybody from your group attended our session on compassion fatigue, where Oliver Vachen chatted to everybody about compassion fatigue. Then there was the session that was from Empower and Kim Ballantyne, who did on the whole violence side of things. Did any of your group attend those sessions?
I don't. So I didn't, because both were on days that we had Belgatex board meetings.
Okay.
And even when one was changed, I was like, oh, and then it changed to another Belgatex board meeting.
I have sent you the emails with the links to the videos, the recorded sessions, as well as the documentation that came out. I seriously suggest that your group takes time to watch those.
Okay.
I mean, everybody else has given me unbelievable feedback on those sessions. I was like, wow, I was blown away how people told me it was exactly what they needed. And especially who's available to assist. There's that, I mean, that group, Chikalulu and Sadak have put together the Empower, who are now available at the drop of a hat. They've got people waiting to handle anybody who's violence or trauma. They've got online psychologists, online therapists, online coaches, and it's all for free.
Okay.
All for free to non-profits and people who need help. So it's seriously, have a look at those emails that I have sent. If you need me to send them again, I will. But you've got a growing ecosystem. We're starting to put that together and send that out to the movement.
Epic. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I'll forward that onto the team if they're not on the database. Yeah, thank you.
Samka, are there any comments that you want to add to what we've seen? Anything that you want to bring out around particularly these four groups that you noticed was very different, or struck you, or you were curious about? Anything that you want to put on the table that can help this team understand a little bit more about what you saw and what you heard?
Yeah, the groups are quite different. I don't know whether it's because of like HC 201 and PMB 202. They are quite a different group. In most of the HC 201, it was young ladies, and most of them have dropped out. And they had issues. Most of them, it was emotional issues. I don't know whether it's the reason why they decided to drop out, because I remember when I was teaching them, we were doing stress management. We ended up having to chat about other things instead of focusing on it, because they had issues, and some of the ladies, they just had a breakdown. They were like crying in class. And then I did follow up with the counseling sessions though after. But yeah, they are quite different even in terms of how they look at the world and everything. With HC 202, there's not much relationship between parents and children. Like, the communication is not that smooth in the families. With PMB 202, the family seems like they are working together. Even also the groups itself, the PMB 202, they are so united, unlike the HC 221. So yeah, I think it's just it.
Okay. Okay, I got you.
And Rod, your sessions with them, your business sessions, because I know site visits are
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah. So I think the one thing that might be playing into this, which is quite interesting, is that PMB is pretty spread out. So you're not getting people from one area, which tend to normally have the same sort of indicators if they all come from one area. They're people from like inside Pietermaritzburg, and there's some super rural people. So it's just interesting to see that that's, you know, it is influencing the results to a certain extent. But yeah, I'm happy with the groups we've got, our latest groups compared to the previous groups. And I think it's quite fascinating, the feedback from, so I know we had a bit of an exodus from the HC 2101 group. The Majosi girls and some of the other ones left quite soon. It's quite interesting to hear that their responses to your sessions. That's quite, that's very informative.
Not sure what to do about it going forward.
Well, I think it's, maybe that needs a brainstorm in itself, you know, because who knows if they were able to be given the correct support in that moment, they might still be with us. I don't know.
Yes, that's a good point. I hear what you're saying, Rod. It's actually, but at the same time, I think we can seriously underestimate how much emotional shit, excuse my language, is out there right now, and especially with young people and young women. And you know, there's so much influence as well. Who knows what the elders are saying to them? Who knows whether they're being teased, whether they are being told, no, you've got to go out and work, and you know, stop wasting your time with this. And I think it's getting to understand where are their hearts right now, where their emotions right now, because if you've got people who are bleeding inside, it's going to be very hard to deal with them unless they go through a healing process first. They will not be able to look at anything entrepreneurial or business orientated that you can throw at them if there's a lot of bleeding inside.
Yeah, but ideally, I mean, our recruitment process ideally needs to bring these kind of things out.
Yes.
So that we can deal with it either in how we say no, number one.
Yes.
Or in how we say yes, but then have things in place to deal with at the beginning. So my concern is that we don't seem to have eyes on this.
Yes, so for this kind of group, maybe, I don't know if you want to have discussions with the clothing bank, you know, they get their women to write their life stories. And usually there's a lot of pain that comes out in these life stories that helps the clothing bank to understand where the women have come from and what kind of place they're in, and whether their locus of control is internal or external at that moment in time. And sometimes people are just in too much pain and they're just too stuck, that now is not the right time for them to be on the program. They just can't focus, or they're just too stuck.
Yeah.
Or there's nobody to support them. As much as they may want the way forward, there's just nobody to support them.
Yeah.
And, you know, something else I'm going to say, and you might not like what I'm going to say, but something that we're seeing a lot in the Western Cape is, especially amongst the younger women, there's quite a fickleness. You know, one young woman tell her something and she gets all excited about it. She tells her friends, the word passes round, they all suddenly want to be part of this, they all come through, and then just one of them has a bad reaction or starts saying something bad, and next thing it becomes like a bit like a group of sheep, and then they all drop off.
You are 100% bang on.
Yeah.
100%.
So I know it's quite mean of me to say that, but it's
No.
what happens when you haven't been able to develop your own critical thinking skills, your lack of really quality education that allows you to debate and discuss and argue and challenge, and you kind of follow the group and what the crowd does. Wherever the crowd's going, that's where you're going to go. And if it's a good opportunity and somebody else is taking it, then you want some of it too. But then when you're the only one left behind, instead of saying, wow, I'm the only one left behind and I'm going to stick this out, you think, oh dear, everybody else has dropped out or everybody else is saying bad things. I don't want to be part of this. And then you drop out too.
Yeah. It's definitely what we've experienced. But it's like, the sad thing is that it's not only a few. Do you know what I mean? It's like our pickings are not exactly very cream of the crop.
Yeah.
This is the hard part.
I do.
I mean,
I do.
I mean, I've got people in my brain I'm thinking of that right from day one we've had issues with in terms of fickleness and behavior in classrooms, for example, and outside of classrooms, where it's like a bunch of gaggling teenage girls. Yeah. And screaming down the road, and like just like quite hectic behavior, but it's not like a minority.
Yes.
That's the thing. This is and now we've settled, and the groups that the people who have remained are settled, and we're in our groove, and we're cool, and we're jiving, and we're fine.
Yeah.
But like specifically those people that managed to get through recruitment and even through reduction, which I'm really surprised about, to be quite honest, those that have ended up falling past, we've got to figure out how we get better at recruitment so they don't even start with us, to be quite honest. Or if they do start, it's a much more high touch viewpoint in terms of healing at the beginning, to prevent the dropout. But even then, with the people I've got in my mind, I don't know if that even would have worked.
Yeah.
But when it comes to group work, there will always be a storming phase or a numbing phase. We will always go through some phases until we are left with the cream of whatever that we need. So I think we really need to understand that those things will happen. Those kind of people might end up being on our boats, but we need to be very careful on how we deal with them once they are in our boat.
Those are wise words, Samka. Those are wise words.
Very much so for a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah.
But this is also where I get angry with groups like government and even other corporates who just think that all you have to do is throw a net out, bring some youth on board, and your program must be able to work magic. They don't even consider the cultural issues, the influences that are in people's families and what is being said. They don't even come close to looking at that as the mechanisms that can sabotage entrepreneurial programs, that can sabotage work programs. And it just makes me cross because it's so complex. There's so much. And this is why people struggle with youth. Yes, because the youth are keen. Yes, they're eager. Yes, they are wonderful. Yes, they are ready, etc. But youth also don't have their frontal lobes fully developed yet. You've got to get to about 24, 25 years old before your frontal lobes are actually fully developed as an adult.
Yeah.
And
the ebook is extreme, and it's almost like if our strategy needs to become that, and this is what it kind of has ended up being, except for a few people, but we focus on those few eye-locked youth that we can find, no problem. But otherwise, we've got to actually be recruiting for the parents and focusing on the parenting and the children they are going to raise. Maybe one day they'll be in our program as well.
but I think we need to just be okay with not being the silver bullet for youth.
I think so. And in fact, if I know this sounds quite cowardly, but you know, after looking at all the programs that we've dealt with as the Greenlight office and everybody that's trying to do something with the youth at the moment, if I was given a choice, I know it's desperately needed because we've got so many youth unemployed, but I would not want to work with the youth, not at this point in time. It's just so fluid and so complex. And just when you think you've got a sweet spot nailed, it completely, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, and you think, oh God, I try to do everything right. I listened. What went wrong and why? And it's 101 different things. It's really, really hard to work with the youth at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay.
I must tell you though, there's only one main group that I've come across that seems to be really getting through to youth really well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the tech sector.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, duh.
Putting youth, young men, young women into teaching them how to code, putting them on internship programs, etc., etc. That's the only one that I can see that's actually having a really strong impact at the moment.
Because it's got a huge carrot. That's why.
Possibly because it's got a huge carrot, but I also find that the kind of person who goes for the tech side of things tend to be the more nerdy types of youth. They tend to be the more introverted, the more the quieter background kind of youth.
Introspective as well, I think.
Yeah, they're not and slightly more reflective. I know that we're terribly generalizing, but this is what's coming through in the stories. And as such, they don't really follow the group. And because they don't follow the group, they're willing to take more risks for themselves and be responsible for themselves.
Yeah. 100%. So in other words, they've got a much higher internal locus of control than the rest of their peers who are too worried about what each other are doing.
Possibly. I'm not sure if I'd call it a higher internal locus of control. I think it's more a case of they are willing to engage in internal discussion.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas everybody else wants to make a decision based on what the group is thinking.
Yeah.
So internal locus control versus external locus control is, who do you blame? Yourself, as in your own responsibility, or you blame people outside of you? Here we're talking about decision making happening internally or externally. And I find with the group that tend to go into the tech side of things, they tend to know that they are responsible for, and they make their own decisions, and they should make their own decisions, and they can make their own decisions. Whereas, the more extrovertish kind of youth, they will follow the group.
Okay.
Doesn't make it easier, doesn't give you any ideas about how to put a solution in place. I mean, you saw what happened with the clothing bank. They tried for a full year with their youth program, and that was it. They said, done.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
So cut your cloth according to what you can do, your competence, your strengths, where you believe you can have impact, and don't be afraid or embarrassed or uncomfortable about changing your theories of change, or even your target audience as you learn more as you go along. That's what it's all about, is learning what the sweet spot is and where you can hit it.
Yeah. Okay. But it'd be nice at the end of this year, team, to kind of reflect on what our retention was, ideally, because it's not a pandemic year. Look at who we've retained, and then we've got a pretty neat idea of the human that that our programs are geared to serve effectively. I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah. I like what you're saying. I get a kind of a profile of the kind of person that you want to invite in, who you've got the most chance of having success with. But I will say this as well: when I unpack almost all of Cape Town's clothing banks with them, and I shouldn't be saying this, but we kind of have verbal bets with each other, where somebody will say, "Nah, this one is going to be gone after a year," and I'm like, no, this one sounds like there's some perseverance there, some persistence. They almost sound like they're stubborn. They're going to show you. They're going to show you, and that's what you want. You want somebody who's going to be stubborn and is going to stick it out. And we often, and then like at the end of 1 year or 2 years, we laugh and we say, okay, where are the notes? Who took a bet on this person? They're still here. Look, they were an outsider, but we included them. Aren't you glad that we did? So some people actually do surprise you. They come in as outsiders. They don't quite fit the profile, but there's something in them that just makes them stick. And maybe there's an inner strength or an inner need to prove something to their families that we're not seeing. And then it comes out in your program. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Humans are fascinating.
Unpredictable.
Yes, damn it.
Exactly. I wish we had the perfect recipe and could operate this wonderful clinical sausage machine. That would be ideal.
Yeah. No. All right, gang. So well done on your session. Samka, thank you for all your hard work as usual.
Yeah. Getting to every homestead.
Yes.
Digging where needs to be dug.
Yes. And just try and get to Samka a little early with your planning so that you can get to your people a little earlier. So that some more of the real impact can come through. Preferably just before you've started induction would be great.
Well, I have stronger words for it, but let's go with that. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, guys. Have a good week.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Cheers. Bye.